All right, guys, no comments there. So we are going to move on to the August question, the August 4th question, most memorable NPC. So for this one, I'm kind of torn between a couple ideas. And the next one also says favorite recurring NPC, and I'm like, well, what, like, fourth and fifth might almost be the same answer for me, but I'm going to choose to answer them differently for number 5. But so I'm gonna have a double answer for 4 if you don't mind. Most memorable NPC. There was in that original Rolemaster campaign, there was the Drow were like national enemies of lots of the other nations and stuff like that. They're like the guy had brought in Drow. The Drow is not, I don't think the Drow are by default in Rolemaster. He was essentially running his own. He was running his own world, but he didn't have like lots of world building that he had done for like a year or two before that or anything like that. Not that I remember, at least, and we lived together, so. But there was just like this, this Drow general. That was fun. Who was kind of our nemesis as we were leveling up, and he was fun to go against. Like we never really went against him, right? The one time he was really within range, he had us totally outnumbered. We're playing Rolemaster. It's not something you can just wade into, like it's a fatal system. You could be level 15 and take on 10 level 1 goblins and die if one of them gets lucky enough, right? Like that's just the way it is. So playing against numbers in Rolemaster is generally speaking a bad idea unless you can do serious crowd control or work down the numbers really, really fast. So like the only time we really even came face to face with him was when he completely had us outnumbered and with our backs against a wall that had a portal in it. And it was just it was a fun session because it really played into I felt like it really played into my character, even though I don't think he planned that at all in any way, shape, or form. I think he was cognizant of it. The GM I'm speaking of. I think he was cognizant because my character had like a sensitivity to altitude, and the destination that was on the portal on the other side was like at 14,000 feet, so it was way high. Well, we were in a dungeon, so we were gonna make a sudden shift in altitude when we went over there, when we crossed the portal. So, like I felt like that really. And that's right. And the enemy was using a weapon that I had become sort of particularly weak to. That's not a normal mechanic in Rolemaster, but we kind of made some adjustments because we were having fun with reoccurring results in the Rolemaster. So I had become kind of weak to crossbows, and they all had crossbows that were aimed on us. It's just kind of like when you get ambushed by anybody with guns, or not anybody, but I'm thinking like a movie's get ambushed with guns. The guns are already out, right? Like we kind of walked into a dead end and then turned around to get on the way out, and like, oh, hello, they're all right there. So you've got crossbows, which are my like faux weapon, and then I jump through the portal, and the altitude change just bam hits that character with a hammer, and I just whoop, and I go right back out, and I'm like, let's take them on. I go right back in through the portal the other way. And I'm like, let's take on these guys. Like I really didn't like where I was. And my story sounds more about, like it's more about my PC, but that's what I remember about that NPC, if that makes sense. Like that's kind of the impact that NPC had. So it was really interesting in that way. And that's what I always kind of remember about that NPC, to be fair. I don't really remember anything else about him. Does that make him a really memorable NPC? Maybe not. So, option number 2 would be in the Risk book of the Risk source book, the Pantheon source book, which I kind of feel like that's kind of weak, pulling out something from a Pantheon. But I had made a demigod character that was, but it was like the scrupulous or whatever principled alignment in Risk, right? The really, really good one, who happened to be the offspring of a really, really bad deity, right? Like the deity intended on killing, but the offspring, but did it really sloppily and did it basically to try to be cruel, right? Like, so just leave that kid out, the baby out in the woods and let it die. But I didn't die because I got picked up by someone out foraging for firewood or something like that. I don't remember that specific part. Excuse me. And later, I never actually even encountered, we never played the game long enough and that character long enough for me to encounter my Pantheon heritage, but I had a dream of her. And I've talked about this in an earlier RPG a Day question that was about your most, your favorite session. When did a GM, knock your socks off kind of thing. And my GM gave me a dream sequence that kind of clued me into my heritage a bit. Like we were kind of doing things about my heritage. Like I didn't realize that I was a demigod. Like I didn't realize I was special because I was the only one of my type around. And in the rest of this campaign, I think there were only like 3 other players. He worked in like, oh, here's another character of your race, and and it's the opposite sex too. So like, great. So I'm like meeting him at the bars and talking to him when we're not out on missions. And then, I talk about lifting up a truck so that they could change a tire. And he's just kind of staring at me like, what? And I'm like, what are you talking about? What's the matter? And he's like, you lifted an entire truck? I'm like, well, the front end of the truck, yeah. And I don't think anything of it because I didn't know that was unusual. Wow, these stories are really kind of becoming about those characters. I'm just kind of, but what I'm trying to say is that my GM was leading me up to and moving me towards meeting I was a demigod, meeting my godlike parentage. And in that dream sequence, she appeared at the very end of it, and that was just like the whole build up to how he was describing the scene was really intense. Like I got kind of tingly. I got that kind of like weird sense when you're kind of losing sense of space around you, like listening to this dream. It was a really cool experience. It did an excellent job describing it. And so like that to me is a memorable NPC because it was that character's mother and would have clearly been an adversary. Here I am like this holy knight and here she is, a goddess of murder and lust. We're not going to get along. So that would have been really interesting to have seen, but I really enjoyed just that one scene where she showed up in my dream. That was just really awesome.